Good morning, students. This is your regular chemistry teacher, Mrs. Ezinwa US, Ss3. I hope you've been keeping safe in the current pandemic. God bless you. We want to discuss the topic carbohydrates. That's the first topic of the lesson. And at the end of this lesson, the students should be able to define carbohydrates and write their general molecular formula. 2, you should be able to classify carbohydrates based on 2 modes of classification. 3, the students should be able to explain and differentiate between each type of carbohydrates and give their examples. Okay, carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are defined as organic compounds of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, in which the ratio of atoms of hydrogen and oxygen is 2:1, as in the water molecule. Carbohydrates are organic compounds, and the major elements that make up carbohydrates are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And the ratio is as we have it in the water molecule, which is 2:1. The general molecular formula of carbohydrates is CxH2yOY, where X and Y are numerals. Let's go to classification of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are classified into 2 major groups based on taste and solubility in water. Based on this classification, carbohydrates are classified as sugars and non-sugars. That is one mode of classification, classifying carbohydrates based on taste and solubility in water. Based on this, they are classed as sugars and non-sugars. Then in modern classification, carbohydrates are classified into 3, based on effect of acid hydrolysis on the substance. What is acid hydrolysis? Acid hydrolysis is the reaction between carbohydrates and the mineral acid in the presence of water. Based on this classification, carbohydrates are classified as monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. Now, let's explain all these groups of carbohydrates based on the first classification, sugars. Sugars are carbohydrates that are crystalline, sweet, and soluble in water to give neutral solutions. You know that when a solution is said to be neutral, it means it has no effect on blue or red litmus paper. Examples of these sugars are glucose, fructose, and sucrose. The usual table sugar in your homes is called sucrose. Now, what are non-sugars? Non-sugars are non-crystalline or amorphous, tasteless, and insoluble in water. Examples include starch and cellulose. Now, shall we move over to monosaccharides? You remember that mono means 1. So monosaccharides are carbohydrates that cannot be split into simpler molecules by acid hydrolysis. They are simple single sugars. Typical examples are glucose and fructose. So the monosaccharides are the smallest type of carbohydrates because they cannot be split into 2 more parts. Examples are glucose and fructose. Another group is disaccharides. You remember very well that di means 2. Disaccharides are carbohydrates that can be split into 2 molecules of monosaccharides by acid hydrolysis. This acid hydrolysis simply means reacting a mineral acid in the presence of water with the substance carbohydrates. Typical examples of disaccharides are sucrose, maltose, and lactose. These disaccharides are also sugars. Then we go over to polysaccharides. The polysaccharides are carbohydrates that can be hydrolyzed to give many molecules of the same or different types of monomers. The poly means many. Polysaccharides are non-sugars. They are the group of saccharide of carbohydrates that are non-sugars. Typical examples of polysaccharides are starch, cellulose, and glycogen. Now, let's summarize this lesson. From this lesson, you should be able to define carbohydrates as organic compounds that contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, in which the ratio of hydrogen to oxygen is 2:1. We equally looked at the general molecular formula of carbohydrates, and we give the general molecular formula as CH2YOY. Then we looked at classification using two modes of classification: classifying based on test and solubility in water, and classification based on acid hydrolysis. Based on whether they are sweet or soluble in water, we have their groups as sugars and non-sugars. Then based on acid hydrolysis, we have three main groups: the monosaccharides, the disaccharides, and the polysaccharides. Okay, now let's look at evaluation. You should be able to attempt the following questions to know whether you have been able to understand the lesson. Number 1, what are carbohydrates? Number 2, write the general molecular formula of carbohydrates. Number 2A, state one major difference between a monosaccharide and a disaccharide. The next topic we are going to consider is monosaccharides. You will get carbohydrates on your Ababio New School Chemistry textbook, page 500, or based on the edition you are using. Download your notes for further information.
Great and glorious and powerful, hearken to the prayers of your children.